What's up? It's episode 125, Pain Points of Wealth, and Apple now is at $3 trillion as the stock market continues to heat up. Economic data continue to come in better than expected. The Roaring Twenties, we've been talking about it. They're here. So we're going to talk about the momentum the market has, what we see in the economy, like we do every week, and some of the bigger signals that things are going to get even better than they are today. So we're going to talk about that. On the tipping point today, we're going to talk about cyber fraud. We've got our friend Keith Tessler on today telling you how you protect yourself against one of the biggest issues in America today, money being stolen from your account. We got a great episode, and we have our colleague Frankie Lagrotteria on talking everything financial planning. Check it out. We got a great show.
Guys, week after week, all I hear about from these strategists is the black swan event that's going to bring the market down, cause a deep recession, cause a bear market. But you know what's really been going on? White swan events, right? It's in plain sight. We just had the GDP revised for the first quarter, significantly higher. Earnings came in significantly better in the first quarter, right? The stock market's doing way better than anybody anticipated in the first half, except for us, of course. Everybody out there was looking for a down first half, up second half. Wonder what they're going to do now.
We're going to have to change their tune and pretend they didn't say what they said before. That's typically what happens. I was always optimistic about things. What's amazing too, though, like the market needs to go up like 25% before anyone changes their tune, right? Which invariably it's too late. It's not helpful after the fact. But every metric we're looking at right now just looks great, right? We saw jobless claims come in, relatively low this past week. We had the PCE, which is like the Fed's favorite inflation gauge. I don't know why, but that came in lower than expected, meaning inflation is coming down faster than it's been anticipated. And earnings look like right now they're going to start getting a lot better going into next year. And if you really want to start looking out further, a lot of the strategists we follow think earnings could be good in 2025. So, we're really complete opposite of what everyone was anticipating. It's just remarkable how that actually transpires.
Yeah, I was talking to a client of mine yesterday. We were going through and doing their annual review, going through performance and everything, and they just couldn't believe how well they're doing this so far this year. They kept saying to me, Chris, I thought we were in a recession. I thought we were going to lose money again this year. So the surprises are definitely coming in the positive.
Well, that's the whole point, Chris. I mean, now as you look back over the last 6 months, the consensus opinion was we're going to have a recession because we had an inverted yield curve. We're going to have a profits recession. That was pretty much baked in the cake. That was a consensus opinion. You look at all the hedge funds and institutional managers. They were more short the S&P 500 in futures and options and indexes, than probably since 2007. So, clearly the market always does what it has to do to confound the majority opinion of the day, as I've said so many times in the past. So, but the thing is, it's not easy. It's, just because we were optimistic didn't mean we knew. You can't predict the future. It's so complex. There's so many countervailing forces, but there's always opportunity. And it just goes to show you the only people that benefit from bear markets like last year and then a bull market this year are people that stay fully invested in the strategy based on their goals.
Well, you know what? It's okay that the hedge funds are out of the market. I mean, they didn't anticipate this. I mean, the S&P is only up like 14%. Just a small amount.
Well, it's like amazing.
Just a small amount.
Yeah, Bob and I have been saying this. Like the hedge funds only outperformed when they were able to get information illegally. So conveniently, after the financial crisis, it wasn't so hard. It was harder for them to trade illegally. So now all of a sudden their performance isn't as good. So having illegal insider information is very helpful to beat the market. But for all of us that want to stay in the confines of the law, very hard to do that. And it's also interesting too. I mean, we talk about like just the real economy and what you hear on the media. And it's like, let's face it, for the last 2 years, what have we seen? Help wanted signs in every restaurant that you walk into. People can't find labor. Like every business owner we talk to, it's not that there's not business to do. They can't find workers to do the business, right? You go to the airport, it's just jamming right now. There's like 2.2 million people going through those TSA lines every single day. And I think that's the thing is like the economy's been telling you, in plain sight, like, hey, things aren't that bad. A recession isn't when you have, a labor shortage, when you're looking for workers. Like and people are traveling all the time. Like that doesn't jive. You're going to recession when that's what's happening in the real economy.
Well, you have the big 4th of July weekend coming up as we're recording this. And all the reports have been, the travel's been a nightmare. There are 800 canceled flights. Chris, you had a tough time, coming back from Atlanta because of flight delays and just overcrowding. The government says, well, those darn airlines are overbooking. What do you mean they're overbooking? It means there's gigantic demand. The problem is they don't have enough airline hostesses. They don't have enough people, air traffic controllers. There's a lack of employees, right, to fill these spots. And the economy could be even, more robust if we were able to, get the people to work in these job openings we have. 10 million, 11 million job openings right now?
As a matter of fact, one of the clients that I met with down in Atlanta, he's a former Delta Airlines mechanic, and his phone is ringing off the hook. He's 74 years old. His phone's ringing off the hook to get him to come back to work, just to get these planes back up and running. He says,
"Yeah, Chris, I was driving out, coming back from Pennsylvania yesterday, and listening to the news, and United was offering their steward and stewardesses triple overtime, triple their base salary, to work this weekend. I mean, it's just incredible."
Yeah. And then, just fuel to the fire. We talked about this last week. We're on the cusp of a manufacturing boom, right? There's $2 trillion worth of bills that were passed through Congress that are going to basically incentivize onshoring, the manufacturing of electric vehicles here, solar equipment, semiconductors. So, and infrastructure like highways, right? All that stuff is going to be getting refurbished over the course of the next couple of years, which is going to be a tremendous amount of jobs. We've already seen construction manufacturing is like going through the charts, off the charts. So we're going to actually have an old-fashioned manufacturing boom. Forget going to recession. We're going to have a roaring boom here in the 20s. I mean, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and no one's talking about it.
Well, that's been the big thing, right? Everybody's been looking for this recession. We just say the other day, right? It's like waiting for Godot, never shows up. It's actually, the market's actually been in an expansion, right? We're actually growing the economy. But it cracks me up. I heard you make your case the other day for onshoring and reshoring and a manufacturing boom. And then like 10 minutes later, I literally heard a perma bear say, yeah, sure, they're going to build all this stuff. But who says there's going to be demand for all the products they create?
Yeah, exactly. I think, the fact that like every automotive company has changed their business model to basically producing more electric vehicles in the future says that's where the future is going to be. And I'm sure, they're not just making a bet on a whim there.
And, Dad, going back to what you said about where's the demand going to come from, I was talking to a client of mine just this past week. He bought a new truck for his wife, and he was surprised to find out that that truck will actually be here early when it comes in August. So there's plenty of demand for things like vehicles, but you just can't get them.
Well, as I was saying earlier, Chris, Ferrari just announced their new lineup, and it's 3.5 years if you order a new car today.
Wow.
3.5 years for a new Ferrari. I mean, it's
That's incredible.
And they have a new SUV, and they said, forget about it. You're not even going to get one.
I think if we pull our money together collectively, we can afford a bumper.
This is true. I'm not promoting Ferraris. I'm just telling you that there's huge demand for all types of products out there right now.
I don't know, but I don't think you're sure enough to get in one of those Ferraris. So it's it's not made for your body type. But the other thing that's remarkable too is we've talked about this broadening out of the rally, right? It's not just tech anymore. This month we've seen huge moves in consumer discretionary. It's up like 8%. Material stocks are up over 8%. Financials are starting to move. They're up 5% this month. So money is definitely moving elsewhere. It's not just tech, and tech gets all the spotlight here. And that's one of our theses and one of our viewpoints is like spread your money out, right? You don't want to be concentrated in what's been the hottest place to be this year. It's just good common sense. And you are starting to see other sectors, other parts of the economy, other stocks are really starting to move, and you want to make sure you have money there as well. Just don't follow the leader here. And I think that's a mistake a lot of investors are going to make. They're just going to follow what's been hot.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ryan. I mean, I definitely having diversification, or as we like to call it, whenever you brush your teeth, good breath.
I'm speaking to a prospect right now who's been out talking to our competition about how to invest their money. And I'm not saying everybody's lazy out there, but boy, oh boy, these proposals are pretty ridiculous. I recommend, hey, put some money in a large cap growth portfolio, put some money in a large cap value portfolio, and buy a couple of bonds, and you're set. And then they sit down and they go through the diversification strategy to show them how they should own all these different asset classes, but then they don't recommend anything other than what's up already. So I think, when it comes to your portfolio, make sure your portfolio is based on you achieving your goals and your dreams, and you work backwards from that goal. And the only way to reduce risk is to diversify the living daylights out of it. And that's not owning one index or one stock. That's owning lots of stocks and lots of indexes. So be careful out there.
Hey, hope you're enjoying episode 125, Pain Points of Wealth. Everything you hear on this podcast, along with some due diligence of your own, can help you get ahead financially, literally at any stage of your journey. This is what Bob, Chris, and I have done for a collective 75 years. But if you want a more hands-on approach, you want to get an idea of where you are right now, an assessment, if you saved over $1 million, we'll run for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do that with no obligation or cost. It's a full holistic review. We literally look at everything. We'll build you your own personalized financial portal. We'll get a bird's eye view of your entire financial life, and we'll hone in on every financial issue you need to address. Whether it's an income plan, how to live off your portfolio, how to take Social Security. Well, guess what? There's a lot of ways to take Social Security. Only one right way for you. We're going to give you a full dynamic income plan, factor in inflation so you don't run out of money. We're going to look at diversification. Has your portfolio been all over the place the last year and a half as markets have been extremely volatile? Or have you been sitting with way too much money in cash? Paralysis by analysis, trying to figure out what to do. We're going to put together a full investment game plan, show you how to grow your money, but most importantly, protect it over the rest of your life. And we're going to look at fees and taxes. Wall Street just loves to sell you those high-cost, tax-inefficient products, whether it's an annuity, mutual fund, insurance product, brokerage product. We're going to do a deep dive of every investment you own, break down all the internal costs, show you how to reduce the cost on your portfolio, and optimize your portfolio for taxes. It's not what you make, it's what you take. We're going to give you our full tax playbook. Literally go to www.paincm.com/financial plan if you saved over $1 million for your financial independence plan to see if you qualify for a free financial review. All right, it's the tipping point. This is where we pinpoint the pain point having the biggest impact on your wealth right now. And we got a very special guest on our show today. We've got Keith Tessler. He's the CEO of IT Solutions of the main line. That's CMIT IT Solutions. We're actually a client of his. He does all our IT work here at Payne Capital Management. Entrepreneur, grew up in an entrepreneurial business, works with a lot of entrepreneurial clients, small businesses like ours. And one of the bigger trends that we're seeing right now as wealth advisors is cyber fraud has become rampant. In fact, the FBI reported something like 10.3 billion last year lost in cyber fraud. So Keith, awesome to have you on the show. Love to get your perspective. And with your business and what you see on the IT side, like what are some of the bigger issues or the bigger scams trends that are going on right now in cybersecurity or cyber hacking rather?
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what's happened. Spam, which has traditionally been considered kind of a nuisance, has become a real threat, I'm sorry to say. What you see is these phishing emails where people send you an email that looks like Microsoft or looks like PayPal or something like that. They use that to get your password and get into your email account. And once they get into your email account, they're not just using it to send spam emails anymore. They're using it to read all your emails, learn everything about you, and then use that information to institute real significant financial crimes. One of their favorite tasks, frankly, is to figure out who your financial advisor is because they can read your emails. They understand your writing style because they've read all your emails, and then send your financial advisor an email saying, please transfer, I don't know, $10,000 to some account that they own.
Yeah,
That's
Keith,
good.
I've been seeing this a lot over the last couple of years. And, one of the things the scammers, they always ask for an odd amount, which is a big red flag for us. But fortunately, I don't think it's just Payne Capital, but I think the industry has a standard where you actually have to speak to someone, before we can initiate a transfer. But now I'm reading that AI can duplicate, Keith Tessler's voice. And so when I call and say, hey, Keith, that $9,500 you want, is AI going to be able to tell me that you're authorizing that?
Not yet, but they're getting closer and closer. Today, they can mimic a voice, but they can't do it in real time, and they can't do a conversation yet.
Okay.
But be careful. Watch out for voicemails because they totally can do it there.
Yeah, one thing, Keith, you came in and you did training for us. I guess it was last year, and one of the things that we really focused on was this whole aspect of social engineering. What some of these fraudsters are doing from a social engineering standpoint. You talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So it's not just a matter of getting into your email account. They use the information they learned not only to attack you, but attack your friends and relatives. So they'll read the emails. They may figure out who you're doing business with, who your accountant is, who your friends are, and then they'll use that as a jumping off point to get into their accounts. They'll send them emails in your name, real legitimate emails. Remember, they're in your email account, and use that to get into their accounts and then work account to continue to infect your friends and family.
I get a lot of texts now that my Wells Fargo account has a problem. Of course, I don't have a Wells Fargo account. Is this a new strategy that they're using?
Yeah, they're not just doing email anymore. They've taken to using texting and even phone calls. I've encountered people who have been stuck on the phone with Comcast or Verizon, and it wasn't Comcast or Verizon. They're just pretending to be these organizations and attempt to extract information from you.
I'm having an issue with Comcast right now. As a matter of fact, your company's here working on my internet as we're doing this podcast. I can't get Comcast to answer the phone or come see me. So they don't really reach out to you, do they? I mean, none of these companies actually reach
No,
out.
and that's definitely one of the red flags. If someone calls from you and says they're from Comcast or from Verizon or even your bank, Wells Fargo, be very suspicious of that call. My advice is find out, get a number, an ID number or something, hang up, and call a number that you know is valid for that organization. There's almost no valid reason why these people will be calling you on the phone.
Especially the IRS or Social Security, right? They don't reach out to you.
They never reach, by the way, the IRS initially never uses email to reach out to you. They always send stuff in the mail. Be very, very cautious of those sorts of things. That's in all likelihood fraud.
Keith, is there any particular demographic or group that these people target?
Yeah, unfortunately, they tend to attack older, wealthier Americans. They tend to be more susceptible to fraud, frankly, a little less tech savvy, and a little bit easier targets. But don't think just because you're a millennial you're safe. I've seen millennials scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow. And like, what kind of things can people look out for? Like, especially, we have the demographic in our client group base that you're talking about. I mean, what kind of things should people be looking out for? What can they do?
Yeah, when you get a communication, there's a few key points that you should look for. One, is it expected? If you get something out of the blue, that's the first indication that something is questionable. If you're not expecting to get an email or a text from someone, question it. Number two is it asking for urgency? Most things in life aren't urgency, but the scammers tend to say, act now, move right away. We need this urgently or you'll be locked out of your account. If you see urgency, that's another thing you should watch out for. And the third thing you should watch out for is to look at it. Does it look legitimate? Check the email address. Is it actually from the email it says it should be from? Do the links go to the websites they say they go to? If you click a link, does it go where it should? Those are the kind of things you do. Inspect the message, see if it looks reasonable. And like you guys do, which is absolutely best practice, if you have a question, pick up the phone, talk to the person live.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, we get a lot of this. I mean, I probably get, and even from my employees, like someone will be posing as Frankie, saying, hey, I've changed my account information. Can you change where my paycheck goes? And an email always comes from this weird address, but I get those all the time. And of course, I changed all the information I've been sending to somebody else. And I don't think Frankie's got paid now for a month. So she won't talk to me.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Lots of emails that pay me more.
Is that why you're doing the podcast from a cave this morning? But
Live.
well, I don't know if Frankie, I know what you've seen, but like I had this one client. I mean, they mimicked my clients, the cadence of the way they would send an email to me perfectly. Had I not called them, like Frank, what fraud have you seen with your clients? Have you come across anyone trying to dupe you into sending money elsewhere?
Everyone's always trying to be Frankie until, I get it. Actually, a funny one, it wasn't funny in the moment, but someone had hacked into my boyfriend's family, and his name's Morgan, which, is typically a female name, Frankie and Morgan. And they called and they were asking for their daughter's information. So they were lazy hackers. And they're like, we don't have a daughter. We have a 6'3" son. So luckily they were smart enough to catch that. And also, the hackers were dumb enough to kind of misgender him there.
Something else to watch out for is, and people don't think about it, is gift cards. Gift cards are basically an untraceable form of money. If anything ever asks you for gift cards, be wary. I've seen a couple of scams. One, an employee got a text purportedly from the CEO. It wasn't, saying, I need gift cards. It's urgent. I'm speaking and I need gift cards to give out as prizes. Send them here. They sent a few tens of $1,000s in the wrong direction. I know someone who got an email scam that said, someone in our congregation is in hard times, send them gift cards. It wasn't someone in the congregation and it wasn't the clergy.
Ryan, whenever he wants to do any illegal transactions, he always uses Bitcoin. So, Ryan, maybe
Yeah.
start using gift cards.
Well, and I'm a
notes.
listener of your podcast, and I know how much you guys love Bitcoin, and I mean that in all sarcasm. But Bitcoin is really the reason all this exists. The whole reason these people are able to get paid is because Bitcoin exists to create a anonymous form of money transfer that they can use to get paid on so many of these scams.
So how does that work? That's actually interesting because I never could figure that out. Like, let's say that I get a fraudulent email to wire money somewhere, right? So I wire it to this, and Bob, I think you had a client recently that had a large sum come out of their account. You're wiring it to a traditional bank, or you're not wiring to a traditional bank. Like, how does that work, and why is it non-traceable? Maybe you can walk us through that because that's something I find. Like, I never
Sure.
really
So the key, no, it's a good question. So there's the whole know your client thing in banking, and the reason that exists is because of fraudulent bank accounts. In order to set up those bank accounts, it begins with identity theft of someone, so they can establish an identity in someone's name that they don't actually own, that's not traceable to them. So they
Okay.
set up a fraudulent bank account. Then what they'll do is after you wire the money to the bank account, they'll transfer it to Bitcoin so that no one can follow the trail from the Bitcoin to wherever the actual end recipient of the money is.
Gotcha.
Wow. Okay. So essentially, it goes to a regular bank account at a regular bank. Someone used some fraud to set up that account, but immediately it gets transferred out of that bank into Bitcoin. And from that point on, it's not traceable anymore.
You got it.
And
Yeah.
what's happening with those banks now? Those, is anything happening to them for having these fraudulent accounts set up?
I don't know the answer to that. That's an interesting question. I know they've really locked down on the rules of setting up bank account. That's why it's so hard to set up a bank account today. But as you can tell, they're still getting through it.
Yeah, Keith, I have a very good friend, and he's elderly, just got taken advantage of on his bank account locally down in Naples. But he gave him all the information. He didn't know. He's not tech savvy, and fortunately, he was smart enough to tell me when it happened. So we locked down all of his accounts at Payne Capital, and it goes to show you like they're using the internet. A lot of elderly people are using the internet. Don't really understand. They don't have the patience. And if somebody's offering to help, they think that, oh yeah, great, help me out. But it never occurred to him, when he was talking to somebody at Apple, that suddenly they could transfer him over to his representative at Wells Fargo. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But it's just, again, as you get older, you just don't, you're just not as savvy. And you just want the convenience of it getting done, right? So you probably go out and play golf or pickleball or something.
But what was
Probably pickleball.
What was the scam, Bob? Maybe you could, how did it actually transpire?
I think initially he got an email from Apple saying that his phone had been hacked. And then, that they were going to transfer money out of his Wells Fargo account, so we better check that. So I guess why they actually did hack his email, so they knew he had an account at Wells Fargo.
Yes.
So, I mean, they can't get anything out of Fidelity because they got to come through us or, through Payne Capital. But, he just, he in hindsight, he says, I don't know how I could have been that dumb. But he said it just, it seemed like you said, Keith, it was the urgency, get this done before they get all your money. It's, I mean, great for him, because I consolidate everything. One of the things that we believe is, making sure that everything's custodied with us so we can balance everything properly. So all he had in the checking account was his monthly distributions from us. So it could have been worse, right? And but then I find out, he had a Cowboy account with 20,000 in crypto, and they got that. So
Wow.
Fortunately for him, everything, all his big money was protected because it was with us. But you're so vulnerable, and he learned a lesson. I think that's why we want to do this call. We want all of our clients to realize that somebody's reaching out to you. Don't react. Get to the people that you know. Don't just react to email or text or these robocalls. Gary in New York just sent me an article. I think he sent it to you guys as well. This woman just got taken for $350,000 on Social Security fraud, we should actually send that article out to our clients, because you're thinking, how could somebody be that dumb? But, you don't know, and you're in that situation, you're trying to protect yourself. And again, they create that sense of urgency, and they sound, like they are an authority. But, it's really scary. And it just ticks me off that they're taking advantage of the elderly. You hear about elderly abuse. It's real, it's huge, and it's getting worse.
And one thing I'll say is good old fashioned accounting controls make a huge difference as well. We recently onboarded a client who had literally had someone in their email for over a year that they didn't know about. And that person had generated a fake employee that they were paying every week along with their regular payroll, and they didn't know. And good basic accounting controls would have told them that. So, balance your checkbook, look at your transactions. Good old fashioned stuff still applies in the modern world.
Ryan, Hank, that's a normal employee. Don't worry about that. Don't
Hank
worry
is
about Hank.
Hank is Frankie's dog, just so everyone knows. I noticed he had a fur coat on last time he came into the office. But no, it's a great point. I think one thing we get away from now, because everything's just like auto debit, right? Like everything's on autopilot. It's not like back in the day where you balance your checkbook. And actually, my accountant, one piece of advice he gave me when I started my business was he said, you and only you should go through every transaction every month for your business. Because he had just had a litany of stories of fraud within the business, of people stealing from the business, not following those transactions. But that's a great point. Like just taking the time each month, review your credit card statements. If you're still writing checks, review those checks that are actually written from your account. But that's right. It's like a very simple, common sense thing that we don't do anymore.
Chris and I did it last month. We saw a lot of charges in Monaco, didn't we, Chris?
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah.
That's all right. The FBI's on it.
Research. That's called research.
That was research? Okay. Yeah. Just checking. It's deductible then. I like that.
And just in regards to other things, Keith, you can do like with protecting yourself. Are there other precautions that you recommend, or like can you tell if someone's monitoring your email? Like are there other steps that you can take to be proactive when it comes to really protecting yourself from cyber fraud?
Great question. So the number one thing everyone's recommending today is setting up two-factor authentication everywhere. The banks today are requiring it. If you don't have it on your personal email, put it on. It can go a long way to stopping someone from getting into your email, into all your accounts. I know nobody likes the extra step, but I got to tell you, it cuts out about 90% of the hackers. It'll stop right there. It's not 100%, but it does a good job of stopping people in their tracks. So that's one thing you can do real quick and easy to protect yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, is there any way to tell if someone's like hacking your accounts and been monitoring it? Is there like an overlay software? There's something you can do about that? Because it seems to me like that is becoming more common. And that's where the best scam I saw, again, was a client who someone had been probably monitoring their email for a long time, was able to send me an email in the language of my actual client from their email address, which is crazy.
Yeah, and actually, this is a place where AI can really help us. Today, there are AI monitoring tools that will monitor your email account for you and look for the kinds of behaviors that hackers do. So one thing hackers will do is they'll get into your account and they'll put a bunch of rules into your account so they can send and receive email without you noticing. And there's a certain pattern to those rules. So the AI can pick up that. They'll also look for stuff like where you're logging in from. If you log in from your home and then 2 seconds later log in from a Russia, China, some country like that, well, then guess what? That's obviously of concern. So there's AI tools out there that'll monitor your accounts for you and alert you if it thinks something might be wrong. Maybe you just went on vacation. Maybe it's a problem.
Keith, can you recommend any particular tools, or is there something that you like?
My favorite one for that is a tool called Barracuda Sentinel. It does exactly what you're talking about.
Well, Keith, that's great information. We really appreciate taking the time just to give us some, a view from where you're standing. You get to see a lot of the more fraudulent activity going on out there. It's great having you on the show, and it's great information. This has been an awesome segment.
Glad I could help. It was a lot of fun, actually. It was very easy. you guys are easy to chat with.
Maybe
and I can tell stories about this all day, I'm sorry to say, so it's easy.
Yeah, I believe it.
to end it off, what's like the biggest fraud, or what's one of the most egregious things that you've seen when it comes to fraud?
The biggest fraud, dollars wise, the biggest fraud I ever saw was a customer of mine. They do manufacturing in China, so there's big manufacturing orders being going back and forth between them. they hacked into actually not their accounts, but their suppliers' accounts. The supplier sent them an email, totally looking legit, using the proper form, everything else, saying we need to redirect a wire transfer for $150,000. The person actually did process the wire transfer. At the last minute. The CFO noticed what was going on and made a phone call and realized it was fraud.
Wow. So the money didn't go out. He was able to save it.
The money never went out. They caught it before it went out. But as you can imagine, they put some serious procedures in place. And remember, this wasn't hacking that happened to them. This was their supplier. The email was in every way they could tell legitimate.
Wow. That's wild. Crazy. And then one question we ask every guest. So
Yeah.
You get the question as well, Keith, is if you could name one album that when you heard it the first time, it changed the way you view the world, essentially changed your life. What album would that be and why?
Oh, easy one. Billy Joel, Glass Houses. And it was the first album I ever loved. And it really taught me to love music. And I've been a music lover ever since.
Wow. Favorite Billy Joel song?
Actually, not from that album, Stiletto. Kind of obscure.
Yeah, it's obscure. I don't think I even know the song. You guys know the song?
I don't think you know any Billy Joel songs, right? You don't like it.
That's because Ryan's not an uptown girl.
That's right.
Not yet, Chris. Not yet. Well, have you seen Billy Joel live?
Oh, yeah. Many times. Many. And actually, I think we're hopefully going to go this fall again. He's still performing, believe it or not.
Isn't he doing like 10 shows, like completely sold out at Madison Square Garden or something like that? Like, I think it's some insane.
Yes, that's what we're trying to get into. That's what we're trying to go to.
I hear they're still absolutely fantastic, though. Like such.
I've got friends who went and they say the guy can still perform. Yeah, he's still a performer, and he's got to be in his 80s by now.
Is he 80 now? Oh my God, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, no, if you're selling on Madison Square Garden 10 nights in a row, you're probably still a pretty good performer. Like, yeah. You can't just whatever they call it, check in or whatever. Check out.
You can't phone that in.
Can't phone it in.
Can't phone it in. Thank you. Yeah. Well, Keith, man, thanks for having me on the show. This has been great. I will put all your information in the episode. We appreciate all you do for us at Payne Capital, servicing all our security needs, and that's just great information for our clients. Amazing segment.
Hey, pleasure, guys. You have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, Keith.
All right, it's the Hidden Facts of Finance, random financial facts that may surprise you or even shock you. All right, Bob, Toyota reports that it has developed a solid-state battery that allows electric vehicles to drive more than 900 miles on one charge. That's much further than the 300 miles that many EVs on the road today powered by liquid lithium and cobalt batteries typically only driving on one charge.
It's like anything else, right? When you have any type of new technology or any commodity, for example, right? We've been talking about peak oil for years, and all of a sudden the world discovered fracking, and we get all the oil we need. And I think the same thing's happening with electric vehicles. You think about all the limitations. You take North Philadelphia or West Philadelphia or South Philadelphia, where you double park. When you go home at night, you don't have a garage. There's nowhere to put a charging station. What's going to happen to all those EVs, right, that are parked in South Philly? I don't think they got a shot. So you're going to need longer-lasting batteries, and it makes sense that technology will evolve. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't even shock me.
Well, I think what they'll do is what Ryan did in college when he didn't pay his electric bill. He just ran an extension cord to the hallway into his apartment.
Which is actually true. It was down to the basement. And funny enough, when I was in the south of France recently, we had one of these tiny Italian EVs, and literally put it in the garage, just plugged it right into the wall like you plug in your vacuum at night. It's just completely wild. So, it's coming, and it's going to be that simple. It was literally like just like a normal outlet that they had in the garage, just like you have in your house. So, and the thing could cruise. You could see it go up hills. It was unbelievable. So, we know Chris loves Italian cars. So, he loves those designs.
Actually, he just ordered his new Ferrari. He didn't know it was going to take 3.5 years to get.
It's nice.
I was able to purchase one wheel.
It's nice being the rich brother. Frankie, some 2.2 million people moved to the Southeast in just over 2 years. That's roughly the population of Houston. A flood of transplants helped steer about $100 billion in new income to the Southeast in 2020 and 2021 alone, while the Northeast bled out something like $60 billion, based on analysis recently published in the Internal Revenue Service data. Man, oh man, it's like the South is rising here.
I am not surprised. So we have an office down in Jacksonville. I was just down there last week, and I would say over 50% of my clients there, they're not Southern. They're just like, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey. They just relocated. I get it. It's nicer weather. The taxes help. So this doesn't surprise me in the least. It's becoming like a little little New Jersey, a little New York, a little Pennsylvania, all down in Florida.
Yeah, with better weather and better taxes. So it makes sense. And you're right. I mean, we've been going to Jacksonville now for like over a decade, and it's just remarkable how much that city has changed. And you're right. It's a lot of Northeastern transplants. So, and we know Bob is just stimulating the heck out of that South Florida economy. Since Bob's moved in there, man, oh man, it's like they've never seen a spending spree like that before.
Rye, I have all those Midwestern friends that I have to teach how to enjoy themselves. You know how that works.
It's true. It's true. A lot of Midwesterners down there. Chris, in a new BBC Radio 4 interview, Paul McCartney says he has employed artificial intelligence to lift John Lennon's voice from an old demo tape, an achievement that was not possible using 1995 technology when the recording was first worked on.
Well, I'll tell you what, technology really is incredible, but it just goes to show you my theory is correct. John Lennon is still very much alive.
Nice. I think he's living in Africa, actually, with Jim Morrison.
Who's that comedian that played in Wayne's World? Not Mike Myers, but the other one who played Garth.
Oh, Dana Carvey.
He does an amazing John Lennon, so it may just be him. He's a master of disguise.
Well, another great episode. Frank, thanks for joining us today. This is the 125th episode of Pain Points of Wealth. If you love our podcast, you like our podcast, you kind of like it, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Leave us a comment there. Tell us how great we are. We'd love that too, if you like the podcast. If this is on YouTube right now, you can like this episode. You can subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell to be updated every week of all our new content. And you can subscribe on Spotify. That's this week's Pain Points of Wealth, episode 125. Stay loose and keep an open mind.